Hi, I'm Catherine from Literacy Volunteers of Charlottesville, Albemarle. This is our Speaking and Understanding video for people who are applying as the spouse of a U.S. citizen. Spouse means husband or wife. So he is her husband, or you could say he is her spouse. She is his wife. She is his spouse. Spouse means husband or wife. If you are applying as the spouse of a U.S. citizen, you have to have your green card for 3 years. You have to be married to a U.S. citizen for 3 years. And you have to live in the United States for 3 years. If you have all of those, you can apply as the spouse of a U.S. citizen. So the first question where this will come up in your interview is if the officer asks, what is your basis of eligibility, or how are you eligible to apply? We looked at this in our Set 3 video. Your answer would be, I am applying as the spouse of a U.S. citizen. You've had your green card for 3 years, married for 3 years to a U.S. citizen, and living in the United States for 3 years. Just like everyone in Set 6, we learned the officer might ask, are you married? Or they might ask, what is your marital status? If you're applying as the spouse of a U.S. citizen, then your answer will be, I am married. They might ask, how many times have you been married? Again, this is just the same question that everyone gets that we looked at in our Set 6 video. So if you were married 1 time, or if you were married 2 times, how many times have you been married? There are extra questions in this section of the application if you are applying as the spouse of a U.S. citizen. So now we're going to look at those extra questions. What is your spouse's current legal name? So here you'll see the officer is asking her, what is your spouse's current legal name? So if her name is Nadia and his name is Adil, what is your spouse's current legal name? She would say Adil and then his last name, his full legal name. Or if they ask Adil, he would say Nadia and then whatever her full legal name is. What is your spouse's current legal name? Your husband's name or your wife's name? They might ask, what is your spouse's date of birth? Again, it's not your date of birth, it's your husband's date of birth or your wife's date of birth. And you need to give the month, day, and year. They might say, what is their date of birth? Or they might say, when were they born? They will probably ask, what is the date of your marriage? Or when did you get married? So the day that you got married, was it 12 years ago? Was it June 13th, 1999, right? Or you could do the number of years ago, 25 years ago, 8 years ago. When did you get married? When did you and your husband or wife get married? Is your spouse's address the same as yours? They want to know if you and your spouse live in the same home. So here, the husband and wife, the spouses live in the same home. Is your spouse's address the same as yours? Yes. If your spouse lives in a different place, a different apartment or a different home, a different town, city, or state, your answer would be no. Is your spouse's address the same as yours? When did your spouse become a U.S. citizen? Again, it's a when question. When. So it might be when they were born, right? If your spouse was born as a U.S. citizen, when did your spouse become a U.S. citizen? You could say when they were born or at birth. If your spouse naturalized, they took the citizenship test maybe 5 years ago or 10 years ago. When did your spouse become a U.S. citizen? Then you would need to at least say the year. Hopefully, you could say the month, the day, and the year, but at least you need to know the year when your spouse became a U.S. citizen. How many times has your spouse been married? Before you had the question, how many times were you married? Now, how many times has your husband been married? Or how many times has your wife been married? How many times has your spouse been married? 1 time, 2 times, etc. Who is your spouse's employer? In a different video, we talked about who is your employer. Now the question is, who is your spouse's employer? Who is your husband's employer? Or who is your wife's employer? They work for Aramark, or they work for University of Virginia. They work for Uber. Or they don't have a job. Who is your spouse's employer? In this case, if the husband does not work, the wife would say they don't have a job. All right, we ready to practice? What is your basis of eligibility? What is your marital status? How many times have you been married? What is your spouse's current legal name? What is your spouse's date of birth? When did you get married? Is your spouse's address the same as yours? When did your spouse become a U.S. citizen? How many times has your spouse been married? Who is your spouse's employer? All right, great job. See you next time.